Today on All About Fitness, I'm so stoked to be speaking with her, Miss Katee Sackhoff, actress. And how would you describe what you do, Katee? If you meet somebody on the street that you're trying to give them a little background about what you do, how would you describe who you are and kind of your body of work?
I've always joked that I'm an overpaid professional compulsive liar. um, and there is some truth to that, obviously. But I would say that I'm a storyteller. First and foremost, I think that that's something that I've always been from a very young age. I was always very dramatic and loved telling stories that were big and bold and a
Hmm.
little on the compulsive lying side. My mom was always like, the story was going really, really great. Did you need the alligator? um, but that's just who I was as a kid. And so I think that it was a natural progression for me to sort of end up where I ended up being in the film industry and being a storyteller. So,
Well, and I was so excited to get this opportunity to speak with you because my daughter, I have an 8-year-old daughter who wants to get into acting, and we had enrolled her in her first acting workshop before COVID hit,
yeah.
and she's like trying it. She's very creative, so it's funny to hear you say that. So, what was it when you first came down to Hollywood? Because you grew up in Oregon, and when you first came down and you started acting, what was the point when you realized that, hey, maybe I can make a living doing this?
What's funny is I don't think I ever doubted that. And I part of what I had going for me was I say the blissful ignorance of youth. When you don't realize that something should be harder than it is, and you failure. I was blessed to get to a certain age, or at the age of 18, failure to me had never been a big, broad thing. It was I lived a very blessed life, and so for me, winning and not failing at something was just hard work and perseverance. So I was lucky in that sense, and so I sort of moved to Los Angeles with this ignorance that of course this was going to happen. This was just the career that I chose, and I think it worked to my advantage because no's were just a step. For me, somebody told me at one point, you have to get 50 no's in this industry before you can get a yes. And so I used to mark the jobs I didn't get down on a calendar,
Oh wow, okay.
because I was counting. I was like, nope, not a no, doesn't matter, just one of 50. It's okay, keep going, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Um, but I think that I, I'll, I think the moment my parents realized that this was actually going to be something that I could do was probably when I was 20. I booked my third series with Richard Dreyfuss. And I think that was the moment where I booked a job with somebody that my parents knew of, that was recognizable, that went, and they in their minds went, oh, she's actually doing okay. And that was like my third series. I'd been acting for like 3 years at that point, but so I think that was the moment. But truthfully, this industry is so crazy, and it's so hard, and it's so competitive, and there are so many things out of your control that dictate whether or not you're going to succeed or not, that I don't know if there is ever a consistent stability or belief that you'll be able to do it for the rest of your life. Um, and you may be able to do it, but it shifts, maybe not at the level you thought you were going to, but you can continue to act. So you always just have to go with the flow and go where the business takes you, and just look at it as like, this is the next turn and the next step to, where I'm going to end up.
Well, you say that, and what comes to mind, I don't know if you've been listening to, I've been listening to the Talking Sopranos podcast recently with Steve
No.
Sherpa and Michael Imperioli, but they're going back through episode by episode of the Sopranos series. And I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Steve Sherpa, who played Bobby Bacala, was
Yep.
talking about they had one of the other actors who had been a career just part-time actor, and what they were talking about for people that haven't made it to the big time, that aren't A-list names, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you're not, but for
Oh yeah,
working
go for it.
but no, but for and I know, but for working actors, his comment was like the cards are reshuffled every day. That every day the cards are reshuffled because you never know whether you're going to get picked up on a job, and if you do get picked up on a job, it could be a 3 to 5 episode arc, or you could become a series regular. So I thought it was a very interesting insight to hear that about acting. And the question where I'm going to go with this, Katee, is do you think, you say you didn't really have a fear of failure. Do you think that sometimes that fear of failure keeps people from trying to pursue their dreams? And what was it like to kind of be able to face that fear of failure and have to work to overcome that?
Absolutely. I think that we are so conditioned to not want to fail because we look at failure as the ultimate failure. But your life is filled with successes and failures on a daily basis. And so I think that it really does stop a lot of people, because here's the thing is that, I look at a lot of people who went to college and got a job and they were acting on the side. It's really hard to put work in, and it's really hard to struggle financially as an actor when you're making a really good living over here. And I think that if you have a plan B, I know that sounds really messed up, but if you have a plan B and the plan B is successful, you will ultimately lose track of the dream. But I also, a lot of people get attached to a dream and they don't allow themselves the spontaneity to go in a direction that is easy for them. And it may actually be the thing that they enjoy more. So many times I've met so many people that went to school to be actors and they're like, I'm an actor, I'm an actor, I'm an actor. But they didn't give themselves that sort of that malleability within the dream to go, oh, it's not acting that I love doing, it's light production. Or it's, like just because they love being in the film industry or they love telling stories, there's multiple ways to tell stories. But if you get trapped on a dream looking a certain way, sometimes, you're going to set yourself up for failure as well.
Interesting. And now on that note, I have one IMDb credit to my name as a production assistant from
Yeah.
many, many years ago when I was trying to back in the 90s. I was living in LA, in the LA area, playing rugby with the Santa Monica Rugby Club, living in Redondo Beach. I was having a lot of fun, and I was trying to get into the production side of the industry, and I crewed one movie. Many years later, and I now help direct, I help direct education videos. I help do photo shoots and everything. So talk a little bit, because this fascinates me. I did a commercial shoot. I was doing the technical directing, making sure that all the actors looked good when they're doing the exercises. All the actors
Yeah.
look good on camera, because you can totally kill a commercial campaign if that doesn't look good.
Of
So
course.
when you're on a set, what fascinates me is when you're on a set. When I was a PA back 20 years ago, I tried to do something, and one of the lighting guys yelled at me, because it's like, no, this is, and talk about the teamwork that goes, because you're talent. You have lights, you have electrical, you have sound, you have camera. Talk a little bit about the teamwork, because I don't think people realize how much of a team it is when you're putting on a production. And I think when I was looking at your credits, you started doing some production work as well, or started working as a producer as well. So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your input from the talent's point of view about the teamwork it takes to put on a production.
Listen, I mean, a production wouldn't happen with just actors. A production wouldn't happen with just the producers or just the sound or just the lighting or just the special effects. It takes hundreds of people sometimes. Mandalorian is a perfect example. I mean, there are hundreds of people working on a daily basis on that set to make sure that you see what you see in the final product on television. And that is something, a lot of the times it's the unsung heroes that you don't see, that there's a guy that keeps the set quiet. That's important. If there's noise in the background, that's going to make somebody else's job a lot harder. So, and it's a trickle down effect. If one person isn't carrying their load, the whole thing falls apart like a stack of cards. And so it's really, really, really important. There are so many different jobs and so many different talents that go into creating what you see as the finished product. And the teamwork ethics is so important because, everybody, if you've spent enough time on a set, like I've been doing this for like 25 years, I know a little bit about everybody's job, like I can enough to tell them when they're not doing it right, but I couldn't,
Oh,
but I couldn't do it.
yeah.
I couldn't do it. We can see when someone's not necessarily doing their best work because you see what the fallout is. But you can't do their job. it's an impossible job. And they're all like that. I watch the guys put the special effects makeup on people, and I'm like, that is amazing. Absolutely. In my head, I see the movements, I see how they're doing it. I think I could do it. And then you get there and it looks like a blob on someone's face.
Well,
So
you say that. What came to mind, Katie, as you're describing that, is Tom Brady couldn't make completions without somebody blocking, without the offensive line
yeah,
blocking. Everybody needs to do a role. And I think a lot of people overlook the fact that when they see the finished production, it's like they don't realize there's sound, there's light, there's makeup, there's wardrobe, and everybody has a specific job. So, real quick, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what you do kind of off camera, but what's it like to work with the team on The Mandalorian and with Jon Favreau in that, and to be part of now, you're now part of, like, you've done a lot of stuff in the science fiction genre, but now that you're part of like the Star Wars kind of like universe, for lack of a better term,
yeah.
literally, what was that like, and what's it like working on that project?
Dream come true is the word that comes to mind, but I've said multiple times that my career has had a very clear ladder to it. If you look at someone's career and say, well, this is hard work and just sort of, chipping away and working, that is what my career has looked like. And I'm so proud of that, because myself and my team have worked so hard. But there are certain times where you feel like you stepped up and into something greater than the career that you've amassed.
Hmm.
And it becomes very clear to you that this is going to change things, but also require some really hard work. And that's what this was. And it was just one of those moments where you go, all right, you better get ready. You're on the block now. So, and it was huge. It's the biggest opportunity that I've had, in the 25 years. So, it's amazing. You just
That's
can't, just don't want to screw it up.
because I could see, well, reading it, in reading through your bio and reading through your background, I saw that you really didn't watch much TV growing up, but what you did watch some Star Trek with your father, right? That you were a Star Trek fan. So now that and I don't mean, you've done a lot of work in the science fiction realm. Is that something that just happened by accident, or is that something that you kind of set out to direct on? I mean, what's that like to be in the science fiction genre, having grown up and having shared that experience with your father?
Yeah, no, it was very purposeful. I think that as
Okay.
soon as I got to a point in my career where I could actually start to be a little bit more picky with the things that I did, it was always things that my dad would want to watch.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Because he gave me my love of cinema. Like, he gave me my love of sci-fi and action and fantasy. And we watched movies together. It's the thing that we had in common. So of course I'd want to share that with him, and then after Battlestar Galactica, when I decided I didn't want to do sci-fi for a while, I went and did a Western, because he also gave me my love of spaghetti Westerns. So, I always sort of have my dad in the back of my mind, so much so that when I, booked Riddick, I was 32 when I got that movie, and there was nudity in it. And before I took the role, I called my dad and asked permission.
Mm.
So, and he was like, he goes, well, what is it? And I said, it's a 3 to 5 second side boob push-in, Dad. And he went, all right, well, you're a 32-year-old woman, so I don't think anyone's going to think that like that you're selling out. Go ahead. It's just a boob, Katie. And I was like, okay, Dad, just making sure. So it
Well,
was quite funny.
I can't tell you, Katie. I'm kind of floating on air right now. As a father of a young girl who wants to be an actress herself, the fact that you have that connection with him about that, I mean, to me, I think that's
Yeah.
so powerful and something that got it. So you stay in touch with them on a regular basis in terms of
Yeah.
your various projects?
Absolutely. Yeah. My parents are such a huge part of my life. I had such a beautiful childhood, and they're such an influential part of my life, even now. I adore them. My dad is my guiding light when it comes to the accomplishments in my life, because for better or worse, I wanted to make my dad proud.
Mm.
When I was an athlete, I wanted to do the best that I could, because my dad cheered louder than, well, he and my mom, but he was always there. He was always there coaching my teams. He was always there driving me to practice. He was always there. Someone had to drive me to those 4:30 morning swims. He was always there. And so was my mom. But my dad was always a lot harder on me as an athlete And he used to say, in a very nice way, he always said to me that, second place is great. Second place is amazing. Second place is you're the second fastest. It's still also just the first loser.
Oh, geez.
And, and he didn't say loser, but like, it's what he meant. He meant, second place is beautiful, but if you want to do this, and if you want to win, where you're going. There's a very clear goal. If you're a competitive athlete, and so he gave me that drive, but he also was the first person to, scrape me up when I did get second place and tell me how proud he was of me.
Well, and I want to ask you about your career, athletic career, in just a second, because
Yeah.
I think that kind of led you where you go. But I'm going to tell you this from a father's point of view, and I don't know if your father's ever told you this. I don't, but from a father's point of view, Katee, it doesn't matter how old you become. He is always going to look at you as that little 2 or 3 year old girl holding on with your hand on his 2 fingers as you're crossing the street. Because I know for my 2 daughters, I have 2 daughters, they're in elementary school right now, that no matter how old, no matter how accomplished they become, I'm always going to look at them as 2 or 3 years old and just gripping my 2 fingers with their entire hand. So I don't know if you share
Absolutely.
that with you, but just as a girl dad, I'm gonna let you know that no matter what you do, is no matter what you achieve, he's always going to put your best interests ahead of his. Now, on
Always.
that note, what you mentioned swimming, what was your athletic career? Because from what I read, you were on a pretty strong and powerful career arc there before something happened. So what
Yeah.
was your athletic pursuit, and what happened with that?
So, swimming sort of, I started as a soccer player, and
Okay.
swimming sort of just became the thing that was better at. I, at a very young age, started, beating people I shouldn't have beat. And so, the decision was made to move me to a bigger club team in a bigger town with better coaches, and to see if we couldn't go for a run at something, greater than what my small town could have given me. And the ultimate goal would have obviously been, some sort of an Olympic aspiration. I mean, that's, as a 16-year-old, that was definitely in my mind. But at the same time, where I probably would have ended up was collegiate swimming for sure. And I really wanted to go to Stanford and swim there. And so that was my goal. That was the goal from a very young age. Stanford was going to happen. And then I got hurt.
Mm.
And so it just, my knees went out on me, and I just couldn't swim anymore. And so I took a little bit of time off to rehab. And anybody who's been a breaststroker knows that there is a very clear timing to breaststroke. And I lost my timing. And it was just, I didn't love it enough to put in another 4 years.
And the
So
breaststroke puts so much torque on the knee. I mean, the kick from that really wrenches the knee, right? I mean,
yeah,
is that part of what happened, or?
it's part of what happened. And I was so little when I was younger, and the dryland training just really took it out on me. Like, I think that I was lifting way too heavy at 15, because like I said, the girls were so much bigger than me. Granted, I was competing in my age group for the most part, but when you get to a different level, you compete obviously, if you're going for the Olympic team, you're, competing against people that are not your age. So, you start to lift too heavy and try and compete, too hard, and not take rest days. And it just took its toll. And like I said, I didn't love it enough to keep going. And I think that was something that was my biggest fear as an athlete, was telling my parents I didn't enjoy the thing I was good at.
Mm.
Because everybody thinks that if you're good at something, you should want to do it. And I didn't ever really enjoy swimming. I didn't enjoy the practice. I hated it.
Hmm.
And I just did it because I thought I should, because I was good at it. And I thought that my parents would be so angry, because they put so much time, so much money into my career, that to tell them that I was just quitting was something I was terrified of. So I think I think I sort of manifested that injury a little bit, you know. I definitely probably brought it on myself by overtraining.
Interesting. No, that's because I do think that we sometimes think we do the stuff we think we should do because others expect that of us. But if
Mm-hmm.
you have that, what I'm hearing, and I don't mean this almost sounds like a therapy session. I hope that doesn't come across. But what I'm hearing is like that same drive and determination that you had in athletics. All you did was you shifted into your acting career and your performing career. Did having that because you sound like you're swimming and competing at an elite level. Did that kind of that ability to focus on a goal? Was that easy to transfer when you made that shift from swimming into acting?
Absolutely. I've said for many years that I attacked the film industry the same way that I did being an athlete. The training's the same, the commitment's the same, the drive is the same, and the competition is the same. I just shifted. And so I think that it also allowed me to take the criticism that can destroy a lot of
Mm.
people in this industry, because it's harsh, and it's coming, especially now with social media, it's coming from every direction on a daily basis. There's somebody telling you something about you that is unkind. And so I think if you look at it like an athlete, that you are ultimately in control of your success, none of that matters. It doesn't matter.
Interesting. And I'm sure there's a huge difference between getting critical feedback on notes from your performance from somebody you trust, because we all want that, right? We all want to become better at what we're doing, and we have to have people we trust that will give us that direct, candid feedback. That's one thing, as opposed to I think the noise and the chatter from the other worlds. Now, with
Yeah.
that, we're not an acting podcast. We're not a swimming podcast. We're not a therapy podcast. This is a fitness podcast. So, what I'm interested in is a little bit in looking at your training program. You have a YouTube channel where you've been documenting your workouts. You've been documenting your fitness journey. The one thing, and to let you know, Katee, I went through maybe about 2 months ago, right around Christmas. For some reason, I started going back. I watched Silence of the Lambs. I watched Michael Douglas and Basic Instinct. I was watching some of those old, like not old movies, but from the '90s, early '90s.
Yeah.
And what stood out to me was how different the actors' bodies are between even the early '90s, which 30 years ago, I guess, but I was in college, so it doesn't seem like that long ago. But how different the bodies are. Like Michael Douglas in Basic Instinct looks completely different than somebody like Chris Pratt now, or Chris Helmsworth, that it might have to train for a very similar character now. So how much of what you do as an actor, how much of that is based on your fitness and your ability to maintain a certain appearance for a role?
Well, every actor is different at the end of the day, and everybody makes the right choice for them. But for myself and people like Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth, of course, um, the body is just another piece of the puzzle of what goes into selling a character convincingly.
Mm.
For me, if I don't look like I could actually kick a guy's butt, you're not going to believe it when it happens on camera. And so I don't, it's all about suspending that disbelief. You know, how much do you want an audience to have to go, oh, it's a movie, it's not real, for them to believe you in this performance? And so I think that we have so much emphasis on body now, so much. And it's changed. It's changed so much since I started. When I started in 1998, I was the chubby girl.
Mm.
And I was a size 6 or a size
You're not,
8.
let's say you're not a big woman. I mean, you're not a big
Never
woman.
was. I never
Yeah.
was. There was one time between 21 and 22 where I put a little bit of weight on. I lived in New York during 9/11, and
Oh
my
wow.
comfort food was egg salad sandwiches. But for the most part, I've always been a 6'8". But what happened in 1998 and the early thousands was if that you weren't a size 2, or if you didn't look like the way they wanted the actresses to look, you were an other, which
Mm.
meant you were the ugly girl, you were the overweight girl, you were the quirky best friend, you were the, you know, uh, you know, masculine cop. You were everything but the lead girl, because you weren't what they wanted you to look like. That has shifted tremendously over the last 25 years. And my body, like I said, same size I was then, It's just the perception is different now. You do one role where you play, you know, a hotshot pilot and you have a little bit of muscle, and all of a sudden you're no longer the chubby girl, you're the girl that's got muscle. And so it's shifted a lot, but even more so now. We put more pressure on ourselves now. You know, my character for my show Another Life has such a low percentage of body fat. It's hard for me. You know, I'm sitting at like a 14%. And for me, that's insanely low. I'm at 25 right now. So it's really hard for me to get to that and hold it for 3 months, but I do it because I think that's what the character would look like. And so for me, it was a choice I made, that I wanted this woman who is the captain of a ship. I thought that she would be regimented. She would be very detailed with her food. She'd be very specific, and she would be driven. And I wanted her to look lean and almost on the edge of obsessive. And that was my own choice. But it's changed a lot. You know, the body positivity movement has changed the industry a lot.
Well, you say that, and what goes into my mind is thinking about, like, who was it, Christian Bale, some of his physical changes that I think he did, The Machinist, where he lost a tremendous amount of weight, and then who played Dick Cheney for
He did.
Did Christian Bale also do Dick Cheney? Is that why I'm thinking? Because yeah, he lost a tremendous amount of weight for The Machinist, and then he put on a tremendous amount of weight for Dick Cheney. So that's one of the things that I think people don't realize when they see a performance is for people that really take the craft seriously. And just so you know, I've taken only 1 or 2 acting classes, but never have. That was more just to develop skills as a public speaker.
Yeah.
But people who take the craft seriously is they learn how their physical appearance will change, just as you mentioned. I mean, it was really fascinating just to hear you talk that one about what you think that character would be like.
Well, yeah, no, I was just going to say, so Christian and I had the same trainer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Me for Another Life and him when he played Cheney. And, you know, Christian has talked very openly about the physical ramifications that his body has gone through, or that, you know, that's happened to his body because of the changes that he's made, the drastic changes to his appearance. Mine is more emotional, you know, like my body, a lot of people would see me from point A to point B and they would say, she looks very similar. But for me, I'm not losing enough weight that my body goes into sort of an extreme deficit where I'm unhealthy. But what it does do is I know what my body looks like at 14% body fat, which I love in a weird, sick way almost, but I can't maintain that. So I have to then look at myself at 24% body fat and find a way to emotionally handle that one is healthier for me, even though I don't like the way that it looks as much, the aesthetic of it.
Well,
it's very different.
The one thing on that, just for listeners and for viewers, that low percent body fat on a woman can be relatively unhealthy. I mean, for long term, for different things that you want to do, whether or not you want to have children or anything like that. And I'm not even going to go, I don't want to go there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Just we need a certain percentage of body fat, because fat is an organ in our body that helps maintain the natural flow of our endocrine system and the hormones we produce. And this is for what I don't think a lot of people out there realize is those fitness competitors, those bodybuilders that may look one way in a magazine, they look that way for about maybe 4 to 7 days around a show.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from experience, from knowing a lot of people in that world, that when they're training for a show, whether it's a female fitness model or a male bodybuilder, when they're doing a show, that's when they book all their photo shoots. They book all their photo shoots 2 or 3 weeks around their competition, because the rest of the year are off competition. When they're not in season getting ready for a show, they have a normal body. I mean, they look better than the average person per se, but they're relatively normal. So for you being at 20 to 24% at your age is completely, you're at the upper level anyway of fitness. So I just want to make that point, that we see these people, that we see a picture of somebody that, oh my goodness, she's ripped or she's lean. That's not sustainable. That's that's not healthy. B, that's not sustainable.
No, and it's one of the reasons why, talking about my YouTube channel, it's one of the reasons why I've been so honest about the things that I do to my body, because I want people to know, don't try and have the body I have on this show. it's not healthy. It's 14% body fat. My period starts to go all over the place. It's not healthy. I don't maintain it for a long period of time because of that reason. And so I want people to know that. I want to talk about my body. I want to talk about the things that I do to change my body so people understand that I am in a caloric deficit. I am not emotionally happy. I am, short-tempered. I'm not sleeping well. I'm tired all the time. I'm cold all the time. I'm all of these things. I want people to know that so they're not trying to replicate that in their own lives because it's not healthy.
I'm giving you a big virtual hug because that's no, but that's exactly why I want. I mean, I was hoping we could get there because that's what I think, Katee. People see they look at images on the screen and they go, "Oh my goodness, she looks so good." But and I've talked to Gunnar about this, Gunnar Peterson. People train to do that. And earlier you said, right before we hit record, you were saying that, well, you're not a professional athlete. And I would argue that, yes, you are. That whereas Tom Brady is training for a 16-week season and a 4 to 6 week postseason, when you take on a role, whether you're taking on a series or whether you're taking on a movie, you have a schedule. And your schedule might be a 5-day shoot. It might be a 3-week shoot. That becomes your training goal. And if you're working, and from watching some of your videos with your trainer, that becomes your season. That's your competitive season. You're not out on a field playing a sport. You're not shooting a ball through a net or anything like that. But I would argue that you train the same way that an Olympic athlete would to get ready for that role. You're not swimming the 100 breast. Instead, you're preparing for a role. Does it sometimes, have you ever thought about it that way?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, I joke that I'm not a professional athlete because I'm not necessarily paid to compete, but no, it's very much, that I do look at myself like an athlete. I do look at myself like I have a season. And the older I get, the harder it is to achieve it. And so, I've actually just shifted up my training because normally what I do is I train super, super hard when I'm getting ready to work. But then in my off season, I bulk up and put on more muscle because I love lifting heavy.
Oh, cool.
And so what I'm starting to do now is I'm actually shifting to a more functional fitness type of workout. Also then coupled with the aesthetic training that I did, which is all about keep the back posture straight. You need those little tiny stabilizing muscles in the back to be strong because that posture looks better on camera. Things like that, because I'm trying to find a happy medium between off season and season for myself and my own mental stability, because it's not healthy to fluctuate for myself mentally like that. So I'm trying to find a place in the middle where I enjoy the actual working out, because lifting really light is not fun for me.
And what are your so like when you like if you and you work with a trainer and you can, if you want to give them a shout out, feel free. But what's some of your favorite go-to when you're that day that you're just like, yeah, I'm looking forward to training today. What's like your favorite type of workout? What gets you jacked, or not jacked, but jazzed or excited about being in the gym?
Oh my God. I love a crazy hard EMOM.
Okay.
I'm like obsessed with, give me 5 exercises that are independently of each other pretty easy, but then give me a really, really tight window to get it done in, and give me lots of rounds and lots of, make me do it for 28 minutes. It's my favorite thing. I love to see people in the gym around me throwing up and me passing them. It's one of my favorite things that because the boys always see this, this little girl coming behind them, and they don't understand that, my resting heart rate's really low, boys. I got this. I'll see you later.
And some people might not be familiar with EMOM. EMOM is every minute on the minute. So that's something like you might do 20 kettlebell swings, 8 pull-ups, 20 push-ups, and maybe like a 15 squat to overhead press, all within an EMOM, and repeat that for like a 20-minute cycle, where once you finish the 20 swings, you got the rest of the minute to rest. So if you get that knocked out in 20 seconds, you got a 40-second rest interval.
Yeah, no, and I love them. I love them because it gets exponentially harder the more you go along. And I don't know, I love pushing myself physically past where I'm comfortable. It's one of my favorite things. I love to feel like I'm going to drop.
I'm smiling because when I lecture to personal trainers, when I teach like workshops for personal trainers, one of the things I often say is our job as a trainer and a coach is to make you be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's our job. Is we want to make you comfortable being uncomfortable because a lot of people don't like that discomfort, but in reality, discomfort causes changes. Whether you're talking about emotional side, emotional change, or physical change, or whatever it is, discomfort causes changes. Now, one of the things we were talking about a little bit too is your journey for a Spartan race. And I love what you're starting to say about that. What caused you, what was it that got you interested in doing a Spartan race? And talk about that training experience for a little bit.
So I met my fiance, who is 10 years younger than me, which, if you want anything to keep you young. um, but no, seriously, we trained together, and he had a very different style of training. He trained very much like functional fitness, CrossFit. And I loved working out with him. I loved going for, max weights and doing all these things. And he said, you should really, a friend of his had a ticket for a Spartan race, couldn't go. And on a weekend, he went and he did it just for fun. And he came back and was so jazzed about it that he was like, you should do one. I was like, no, 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 no. I just pretend to be tough on camera. I don't, I don't actually climb ropes. I don't do that kind of stuff. They usually tie a rope to me and make it look easy. And after about a year of sort of pushing me to do it, I finally realized that the challenge for me would not be the physical aspect of it. It would be the mental, emotional sort of desire to competition. I love winning. And when I don't win, I feel like a failure. And sometimes I protect myself from that feeling of failure because I can't handle it emotionally sometimes. And that is my own struggle. My own struggle is to do the best I can, work the hardest I can. And if I don't win, it's not about that. It's literally about doing something that challenges you, that makes you feel alive. And so I went out and I did it. And I was like, I'm just going to do the best I can. And I got addicted. I got absolutely addicted. I think in the video toward the end of the Spartan race, I literally said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I had a smile on my face. And I was like, and I think I was like 60 burpees in and was like, somebody kill me. This is insane. And I ended up getting second place.
Wow.
I know. And I was like, I called my dad. I was like, I have never been more proud of second place in my entire life.
Well, what was your favorite obstacle? And just for listeners, I mean, I'm a huge fan. I started doing the mud runs and the OCRs in the early 2010s, like between 2011 and 2016. I did I forget 3 or 4 Spartan races. I did here in San Diego. We had the Camp Pendleton mud run. I did a few of those. And the one thing I was going to say, if you and your fiance want to come down here, I don't know if we're going to do it this year, but I want to throw out the invite to you that every year the Marine Corps does the Marine Corps Boot Camp Challenge down at MCRD, which is, I don't know if have you heard of that?
I have heard of it. Someone told me I should do it at one point.
Oh, it would be, but Katie, it's a blast. The money you pay for the entry fee goes towards the Marine Corps family. It helps raise money for Marine Corps families, but you don't go through the full obstacle course. You go through an abbreviated portion of it. I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times. I forget, but it's been a blast. But you do have the DIs there offering the special Marine brand of encouragement. I'm using air quotes around encouragement. So they might pull you out at some point, and it's like a 5K, a 3.2 mile course. So it's not super long, but you're there early in the morning, so you get to see the cadets and the Marine, what do they call them? The recruits do reveille, which is an amazing sight. You get to see a little bit of the Marine culture, and it's just so amazing. And the sense of accomplishment for ending it. So I'm gonna throw a challenge to you, whether or not we don't have to do it together, but think about doing the Marine Corps boot camp, because that's the fun type of stuff that OCR does, right? I mean, it gives you that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm all for a challenge. I would love to do it. I want to do a Murph this year too. And I'm supposed to have surgery 3 weeks before. So there's no way that I'll be ready for the Murph, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
Even if it takes me all day, I'm going to do it because it's going to take me all day.
And you're going to do that around Memorial Day? You're going to do the Memorial Day?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't even do a pull-up right now. So, like, I'm dead serious. I can't do a pull-up right now. So we got a long way to go.
But I think you'll be able to knock it out. I think you'll be able to knock it out. But what was your on doing the Spartan race? What was your favorite obstacle? The one that you're like, oh, can I do more of that? And the one that really kicked your butt a little bit.
I love climbing over walls. For some reason, it's just easy for me, and I love like the vertical walls and like the the walls that are like slightly like horizontal. I love them, and I find them to be so easy. I could just like fly over walls all day. I love it for some reason. I hated the spear throw. We bought a spear. I practiced spear throws in my backyard for 2 months, and I missed the damn thing. And I was like, no. But the whole reason I did it was to prove to myself that I could do something that scared the crap out of me. And that's how the YouTube channel really started. It started out just sort of me doing things that I was interested in, and it became something much more deep than that, actually. And I realized that it started to become all about a wholeness, like a wellness wholeness approach to life, of that every single thing that encompasses our life goes into longevity and wellness. And I think that, if you look at the leading causes of death in our society, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, all of these things are preventable diseases. And so that became sort of my mission, was to, how do we make this fun? How do I lead by example? Because I want as much longevity in my life as possible, because I love living. I think it's so much fun. I had cancer 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so my goal was, how do I prevent the things I can prevent and stay strong enough for the things I can't, and live a full, fun life? And that's what the YouTube channel became. And it became, let's use myself as an example. Let's talk about the things people don't want to talk about, which is, we talked earlier about bowel movements. It's so important to talk about poop because I can't tell you how many of my girlfriends don't go to the bathroom, but like once or twice a week. That is so unhealthy.
That's not good.
And if there's not a problem with you internally, and if it's not about the stuff you're putting in, then you have a problem with stress on your body that is affecting your release of your toxins. And to me, those are things we need to talk about, because it's, colon cancer is one of the leading, I think, top 5 cancers in people as we age in this country. So it's really important.
And to ask you about this, because your birthday is not a secret. It's on your IMDb page. How much has making that transition to turning 40 really driven a mindset or a mind shift of fitness? And where I go with this is because I think when we're younger, definitely in our 20s, fitness to us is working out. It's all about external appearance. It's all about what I look like. And it's personified times a million. It's exponentially much different in your line of work. But now that you're approaching 40, how is your mindset shifting towards your overall health and wellness?
Oh, not sadly, I'm in my 40s. It happened during 2020, so it doesn't really count. I say if you had a milestone birthday in 2020, if you get a redo in 2021. So my birthday's coming up here in like 2 months, and it became really important to me because I have heard my entire life people talk about women at 40 and how women at 40 do this, women at 40 have this, women at 40 can't do this. Well, all of these things. And I was like, I don't know what these people are talking about. This is literally a mindset. And if we have anything blocking us, we're putting that on ourselves. I'm not going to let someone tell me that I can't do something, or that, women after 40 aren't allowed to do this, or you shouldn't feel this, or, and it's, I don't want the limitations that society puts on women to hold me back in my life, because I feel like I'm just getting started, really.
And where do you think we can get better with women's fitness? Because one of the things I loved, you talk about strength training, and one of the things I'm going to ask you, so tell me the heaviest weight you've ever lifted, and then how empowering is that to know that you can climb a wall, that you can lift a heavy weight, that you can outwork some of the guys in the gym? How much motivation and confidence does that give you for other walks of your life, for other parts of life?
Yeah. So I wouldn't be able to tell you the heaviest things that I lifted because I've just started this, like, if we're talking about functional fitness, CrossFit type weights, I haven't been doing it long enough to be able to tell you exactly what it is. Um, but I've always been really strong. I know that when I was training for Riddick, it was one of the things that made me super happy. When I was training for Riddick, I was at this gym with Batista, and we were working out, and I really needed, a weight to curl, and I couldn't find the weights anywhere. And there was this guy down there using the 35s, and I was like, can I grab the 35s from you? And I grabbed them, and he's doing like back flies or something. And I grabbed them, and I was like, can I just work in with you? And I grabbed the 35s and started curling the 35s. And this guy was like, what? What is she doing? And because I was so stacked for that movie, I put so much muscle on because I knew I was going to stand next to guys like Batista and Vin Diesel. And so I knew I needed to be bigger. But that was and that guy was a professional athlete. And I remember walking away from him, and he asked me out on a date right after that too. I remember thinking to myself, God, I love working out super heavy and making boys go, what? So I love it, but I'll get back to you when I actually start. We're getting our home gym set up right now. So I haven't actually gone to a gym for a year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're just in the process of setting up the garage with our squat bar and all of our,
Now, if you need any help on that, we can talk offline about this. I got a buddy up in Santa Monica. He did Vin Diesel. He did Vin's and Paul Rudd's home gym.
Wow.
That's his side. That's his side hustle. So we can talk. And I work with the company that makes Nautilus and Stairmaster. So if you need that, so we can talk after we hit.
Yeah, for sure.
Now,
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but the thing that I think that for women and women's fitness, I think the thing that, because you asked what we can change, there's so much that needs to change, I think. But I think
that's what I want to come back to.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems I see with women in fitness is comparison. I think that comparison is literally the death of joy. And because we're constantly comparing ourselves with the woman next to us, because we are trained to be better than, compete against, I think that that is the thing that holds a lot of people back and a lot of women back. Now, if you are a person that gets off on competition and it's a healthy thing for you, because there is a difference between healthy competition and unhealthy competition. So if you're a person that can handle a healthy bit of competition in the gym and it's good for you, go for it. But what I mean about comparison that's unhealthy is I think that as long as we continue to focus on female bodies in fitness, I think we have a problem. We don't need to talk about what female CrossFit bodies look like, because that's not, they don't care about it. That is, the CrossFit Games is not about how they look in bikinis. So we don't need to talk about it, because that's not what that body is. It may not be for everyone. But I think that is a thing. I think that there's a place for talking about the aesthetic of a female body, and a lot of times it's not in the fitness world, and sometimes it is.
Well, I think one of the things, you're a millennial, and I just want people to know, I've been saying this for about the last year. Millennials are now turning 40, so we can no longer make fun of millennials. Now you've kind of passed that threshold, so we now dump on Gen Zs. But one of the things that I love about the millennial generation, and through Instagram and through CrossFit, is there has been this mindset, Katee, there has been this shift in strong is the new sexy, that is no longer skinny is sexy, but strong is the new sexy. And what I like about watching some of your YouTube channel is that you're taking on, and this is what we started talking about, is you're as an actress, as somebody that's in the public eye, you're taking on that responsibility to say, hey, look, guys, might be what I do for my job, but really this is more about your health. So what type of message, it's what, Blood, Sweat, and Coffee, right? Your YouTube channel. Yeah. What message are you trying to promote on there? What do you want people to know, especially other women? What do you want them to know about how they should approach their fitness and their workout programs?
what I'm really promoting is for people to look inside themselves and be very, very honest with what they want to achieve with their body and their health, and really stay to their own journey. Don't compare themselves to another woman next to them. We can learn from other women. We can commiserate and share our stories to motivate each other. But at the end of the day, it's an individual journey that is a lifetime journey. It never ends. Your fitness and your health journey is forever. And so I think that you have to learn to love it, and put yourself first a lot of times. And as women, we have a really hard time doing that. We are, I think, I can speak for myself, because I can only speak from, a truth and an honest, my pug is screaming at me because she's hungry. I can only speak to my own truth and what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So for me, and I'm using myself as an example in my YouTube channel, I am on and I keep using the word journey because I hate that word. It's so stupid and it's so overused, but it's the truth. I'm using myself as an example to be honest and try to live a joyful, full life and have fitness be fun at all times. And it's constantly changing. But that's the thing that I'm promoting for people on my channel is, it may not be the thing that you think it is, but you're going to find something that you enjoy about working out. And once you find that thing, you just hold on to it.
And that's exactly, I love that message. And what I'm trying to do with the podcast is I want people to really, especially once we go over the age of 35 and 40, that fitness, if you want to do half naked shots on Instagram, God bless you, go for it. If you really care about having six-pack abs, go for it. I joke that I drive a minivan now. Actually, my ex-wife has a minivan, but I'm in that stage of life where I don't really worry about that as much. My goal in fitness, Katee, what I want to reframe is I want people to understand that fitness can enhance the quality of life. Mm-hmm. And if you're fit, like being your age and being fit gives you choices. In your line of work, in your career, is going to give you different options for characters and for roles that you might get, which is different than the average person. But being fit, being in shape, means that you have a wide plethora of choices that somebody that isn't doing that, is allowed. Is that something? Do you ever take that point of view? I mean, do you ever feel that your fitness really opens up new opportunities for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the main reasons why I do what I do. I can't tell you how many times when I just said the other day on Instagram that my hip has been hurting. So I've been out for 4 months of not really working out as hard as I'd want to work out. And I can't tell you how many people told me I need to slow down. You got to slow down. You're 40 now. You're not going to. And I was like, no, that's the opposite, guys.
No.
When you slow down, you're just going to stop. Why slow down? When you look at people that are living healthy, full lives into their 80s, they're still moving. They have a purpose. That is one of the things that I want out of my life, is to be able to continue to move as long as I want to move. And the only way to do that is to keep moving, because you can't stop. You can't stop oiling those joints and moving. And I want to experience all that life has to offer. And you have to be able to move to get there.
Well, and it's a shameless plug, but for a shameless plug, because I do have an ebook on that, and I'll send you a copy of the ebook to your rep. But I do have an ebook on exercise for the Fountain of Youth, on how exercise, and that's what my upcoming book goes deeper into the science of that. Because really, when you take a look at it, Katee, you and I are in the group. We're in our 40s. It's the people that are about 15 years ahead of us that are in their 50s and 60s. They grew up with the gym craze of the 80s. They grew up starting to work out. If they were born around 1950, mid-1950s, and they're now in their 60s and early 70s, this is the first generation of adults that in our lifetime or in history that has ever grown up exercising throughout their lifespan. Because before the 1970s, people didn't go to the gym recreationally. Yeah. And so this is what we're learning now. Where I'm going with this is what we're learning now are the benefits of high intensity exercise for our 60s, for our 70s. There's research on people in their 80s getting benefits from doing Tabata intervals and doing HIIT intervals. So for somebody to say you're 40 now, you shouldn't be training that way is complete bollocks. To use a British phrase, it's completely bullcrap or
Yeah.
bollocks. And
Yeah.
do you feel that way? I mean, do you feel it's like that mindset? Do you feel kind of like now that you're 40, you want to prove, you want to, because I don't know about you, but now that I'll be 49 this year, and I'm like, I want to redefine what fitness is as we go through the aging process.
Me too. It's such a challenge. And that is part of my goal is showing people that you can do whatever you want to do. I'm going to prove to people that I've had my best body at 40. I've had my healthiest body at 40. Um, and this is all part of it. And it's all about learning what works for your body and what doesn't, and then having, still allowing yourself to have fun. And I have a Whoop watch, and I've
I was
started
just about to, I was going to
experimenting.
ask about your wearable. So how
Yeah.
do you use that now? And how has that changed your mindset?
So what I've realized now is how important sleep is to my recovery.
Hmm.
And it's all part of feeling my best. And so I now have a direct correlation to, if I have a couple glasses of wine, I know exactly how crappy I'm going to feel the next day, not because I'm going to have a hangover, but because my heart rate variable is going to go down. My heart rate's going to go up. My sleep's going to go down, and I'm going to get a really low recovery score. So those things are really important to me now. Is it really worth it? Those two glasses of wine, you know what? One day a week it is, but every single day it's not. So, and I can tell you what sugar does to my body and what it does to my sleep and what eating late at night does to my sleep. And that is the most important thing to me to perform my best is sleep.
And
Um,
do you think, real quick, do you think that, because I had this conversation the other day with somebody,
yeah.
and do you think that people are able to kind of take those metrics? I mean, does wearing a Whoop watch help you be more mindful of kind of this approach of all these other variables?
I think it does, because for me, I've had other wearables where it was all about steps and things like that, and heart rate. But because the Whoop, you can't actually see it unless you look at your phone.
Mm.
What it does is it just throughout the day, I might check in to see, what my strain score is throughout the day. Like today, it's super low because today is my recovery day.
Hmm.
And I am not working out today because it's my day off. And I only have a 5.9 day strain, which is really low. Yesterday I had a 16. So, but what it does is I go, okay, what the main thing I'm focused on now is my recovery and what my recovery looks like, because I know that recovery is part of the process. I used to think train, 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 train. Don't take days off, maybe take a Sunday off, but whatever. Keep training, which is how I got injured in the first place. And then I think what happens is we overtrain, we get burnt out, and we stop. And so what the Whoop has done for me is it has allowed me to have a realistic expectation of myself throughout the day. And now I know sort of, my overall goal is that wellness, which is my recovery, which helps in with my longevity for life.
Okay, you know who you sound like, and so now you're gonna walk out of this interview going, I am a professional athlete. You're gonna have that little, but you do sound like Tom Brady and Drew Brees, and you do sound. I mean, the reason why they're performing at such a high level at their age is and JJ Watt too. I mean, these guys, from what I've heard, various interviews, they take their sleep seriously. They take their recovery seriously. They wear compression clothing. They watch their heart rate. They watch, and I'm test. This is a Apple Watch 6
Yeah.
that they sent me. I'm test driving this to give feedback for Apple, but now it can measure your sleep and measure HRV, your heart rate variability, and it's
Right.
like I really think that, and especially having this data and saying, you know what, today might not be the day I train my hardest. Maybe instead of I was going to maybe try to crush in the gym today, but for whatever reason you didn't get great sleep. Maybe something you ate was a little bit you didn't sleep. So you're still going to be active today, but you're not going to go try to crush it today. Does it
Right.
really help you take that mindset? Because that's because you're looking at it, you're training like a performance athlete. You're
Yeah.
just again, you're not on TV, you're not playing a sport.
Yeah, it does. I'm looking at my recovery today, which is 84%. It's not as high as it was yesterday, but 84 is still really high. And today was my rest day. I may actually go out and do a workout today and push it pretty hard and actually make tomorrow my day off, because my recovery is so good. But at the same time, my recoveries have been super high lately. And so I'm also learning that when my recovery is really high, my day strain is not going to be as high.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone in my group keeps beating me on the day strain because they've got like recoveries of 13%. I'm like, Jesus, are you dead? Like, what did you do last night? You got 3 hours of sleep. I know what you did. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it definitely changes the way that I look at it. And it also, it helps me focus on something other than aesthetics. I think that, as we age, inevitably things on our body change. Things don't look the way that they used to look. And we need a new way to gauge success other than the aesthetic that we see in the mirror. That's one. For me, it's going to always be one. And it's, one of the ways that I judge if I'm taking care of myself. But I think what the Whoop does for me, and I'm not a spokesperson or anything, but what the Whoop does for me is it gives me a different goal that isn't so easily torn apart by myself, if you will.
Yeah. I think that's important to hear, because I really think that people need to pay attention to that. They need to pay attention to sleep. They need to pay attention to all those things. Now, getting ready to wrap it up, and I want to kind of be respectful of your time. I know you said you have all day to be able to chit chat now, but in all seriousness, to start wrapping it up, one of the things I want to ask you about is, what is Acting Outlaws? I was looking at that. Looks to be a little project that you're working on. What is that, and what do you do with Acting Outlaws?
Yeah, so Trisha Helfer is a really good friend of mine. We met on Battlestar Galactica. We both ride motorcycles together.
I was going to ask you about that. What your riding
yeah.
thing is. Okay, cool.
So we both ride. I sold 2 of my bikes. I only have 2 bikes left. I kept my dual sport bike and my Harley. So I'm staring at the garage because they're both in there on trickle charges. I haven't ridden for about a month, but my mom always told me that if you were lucky enough to live a life where you've got a roof over your head, you've got, food on the plate, you've got people that love you and you're healthy, then you need to give back. And so, we've always looked for ways to be philanthropic. And so for Trisha and I, we sort of found this way to marry motorcycles with philanthropy, and we do different rides for charity and raise money, and we've had a really good time. We're trying to find a different way to sort of turn ourselves into the Ewan and Charlie, because they seem to always get to do these really fun rides sponsored by like BMW on television, and we're like, come on, where's the ladies version of this? Like
Exactly,
we ride just as good as those guys do.
So so between a cruiser and between a sport bike, what's your favorite?
Oh gosh. So I am not a fan of sport bikes. I do not like being forward over the tank. It scares me. Trisha likes being over the tank. She loves speed. I am not the speed demon of the group. I am more I'd like to cruise in a nice, very safe pace, so I can do this for the rest of my life.
On the side.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, that is what I love about it. I love being inside of a helmet because it's quiet and it's almost meditative. And it's it's a great stress reducer for me.
It's funny. I had a bike for a little while. My ex gave me a choice. I could either play old boys rugby or I could have a motorcycle. And when we moved out to San Diego, I got a bike, and I enjoyed it. But I have to tell you what, Katee, I was coming home one night and coming down I-5, and I hit a fog bank, and it freaked me the hell out. I mean, I'm like, so I came home. I told her, hey, I'm gonna sell the bike. I'm gonna start playing old boys rugby. She's like, because she had said, I can only deal with you having so much risk of head injury. Now, on that note, real quick, I hadn't planned on, this is kind of like in the back of my mind, how much, because I'm in San Diego, I used to live right up the street from the convention center. How much does Comic-Con, how much do you enjoy going to Comic-Con? What's that mean for somebody like, especially since you're in that genre, you get a big, now all of a sudden your smile just changed. And for listeners that might not be able to see this, her smile just went, she had the cool smile from Think About Motorcycles, and all I said was Comic-Con, and now she's like ear to ear. So this is about to wrap this up, but I had to ask a little bit about Comic-Con because it is such an event. I've never actually been, but just going down there the week of and seeing everything, having lived down there, it is such an event. But what's that mean to you as being somebody that works in the industry?
It is crazy. Comic-Con is insane, and it's taken on a life of its own. It is not the same Comic-Con that it was 20 years ago, by no means. But you know, the moment, I've always said that the moment people don't want to come see me at a Comic-Con is the moment my career is over.
Kind of like Johnny Drama on Entourage, right?
Yeah, it's true though. Like, I wouldn't have a career without the fans. And so it's a way to give back. And I probably, obviously during COVID, it's changed. I think I have 4 conventions scheduled for this year if they're safe to go, because it is a way to go and show the fans appreciation, and meet them, and they enjoy it. I love it. And it's great. Comic-Con is just a beast of its own, though.
For people that have never seen it, you turn downtown San Diego becomes a movie set of its own. And I have this picture, Katee, from maybe 2011 or 2012. There's a guy dressed as a Sith Lord, had full makeup as a Sith Lord. He's at the trolley station pushing a baby carriage. So and that right there, that one image is a personification of Comic-Con, because you'll walk down the street and there's a Chewbacca, there's a whatever. There's just people, especially on costume day when everybody's dressed up. It really is amazing what they do to downtown San Diego. They turn it into like a whole movie set. Now,
oh yeah, it's like 40,000 people.
Oh, it's insane. And just, I lived up on Bankers Hill, so from our balcony we could see all of downtown, and we could see them change everything, like how everything changed. Now, the final question I want to ask before we get out of here is, as I was going through and doing the research, I found a couple of scenes that you shot on Big Bang Theory, and one of them was with you grew up watching Star Trek with your father, right?
I did.
So what was it like to work with George Takei, if I'm saying his name correctly? What was it like to be in those scenes with George Takei? And for anybody that wants to see, just look up the scene on Big Bang Theory, because I almost was a little embarrassed. I'm like, I can't believe I'm be speaking with her. But what was it like to be able to do that scene? In all seriousness, of somebody that you grew up as a young girl, sharing that with your father, what was it like to be able to do that work with Mr. Takei?
Oh God, it is amazing. I mean, he was that, every person on that show were such heroes to me as a little kid growing up. I didn't realize it was in reruns though. And I thought that I could actually marry William Shatner. Like, I thought he was like within my age range when I was like 10. I was like, he's only like 15 years older than me. Little did I know.
Yeah.
But I always had an eye for the older guys.
Well, you said your fiance is 10 years younger, so we won't.
He is. I learned the error of my ways. I went the other direction.
Good for you. Good for you.
No, it was such a gift. And what's funny is that when I left Battlestar Galactica, I stole my flight suit, because there was an auction house coming through. And very brazenly sort of numbering clothing, and which I get, I absolutely get. Everything is an asset. Everything costs money. And they were numbering clothing, so much so that they were like almost numbering it like when you had it on, to make sure they had, enough of everything. And we as actors were allowed to keep one thing. And of course I asked for my helmet. But what is a helmet without a flight suit? And so I took it off at my last day, and I hid it in a cooler, and I walked to my car and I drove away. And nobody knew where it was. I mean, we had multiples. I had like 4 of them, right? So it wasn't that big of a deal. And they ultimately sold them at auction, like everything. Wow. And Trisha Helfer wasn't allowed to keep her red dress, which was very frustrating. Like, that was an iconic red dress. And you'd think the person that wore it for 6 years would be able to at least try and buy it or something. And so I wore it on the Big Bang Theory, and George had his cape as well from Star Trek. And I said, they don't know that I have this. And he goes, my dear, they don't know I have this either. And we were both laughing hysterically that we both made off with wardrobe that nobody knew what happened to. So
that is awesome. I mean, that's such an interesting little background story. Now I might have to edit this out. You might reach out to me like, hey, you know what? Let's get rid of that last part, because you don't want to get. Hopefully, you made amends with the wardrobe and prop people that they're not going to.
They never asked. You know what happened, and I I years later, well, not years later, but they finally sent me my helmet and there was tape on the inside of it. And it wasn't even Starbucks helmet. It was Cat's helmet, which
Mm.
really frustrated me. So they sold Starbucks helmet. So I didn't feel too bad. They were a bit, that whole auction house was a bit stingy anyway. So I didn't feel bad about it.
And now I watched the original Battlestar Galactica. Now I'm going to have to go back and watch this one because I am just not. I haven't gotten into the sci-fi genre. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like, and in fact, I was talking to my daughter, letting her know I was interviewing you, and she's like, "Oh, I haven't watched season 2 of The Mandalorian yet." So now I'll be able. But now I'm looking forward to watching it with her and being able to say, "Hey, I had this conversation." Well, Katee, I
Yeah,
really.
it's a great season.
What's that?
It's a great season. You guys are
Yeah,
gonna love
I'm
it.
still about halfway through the first season, and trying to catch up with her so we can watch it together. Well, Katee, I really appreciate your time, and more importantly, I appreciate the message of what you're trying to do with your YouTube channel and by talking about fitness in a more holistic way. Because I really think that's what we need to focus on is creating that message that exercise and fitness is about enhancing quality of life. Yes, it can help change appearance, but in the long run, it can really help it change the overall quality of life.
Absolutely. And that's the goal, right?